but it's blurred.
So we haven't really decided what we're going to talk about.
Now, I was gonna ask about the different units. Which one has been the most annoying one, and which one do you think is the best unit? That was what I was gonna do.
Really?
Yeah, that was my idea.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also debating if we just do it once a month because I mean I probably have to ask and see if people are actually watching the replay,
Yeah.
and if it's useful or not. Um, because if it's not something that people are interested in, then what's the point in doing it? You know? So,
Right.
or maybe make it longer, but make it on the weekend or something.
Maybe.
I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. Well, it's time. Let's start.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So I'm just arriving here. So just
Yeah.
pulling into the parking lot. But yeah, so this is the next Back to Work Wednesday. Last week we were at the Vidsummit. That's why we weren't able to do the call because I was at seminars because it started at 8 a.m. already. So that was very interesting. Um, yeah, lots of information about content creation, about like how to um I think it's more on like the back end stuff, like not the actual content creation, like how do you shoot videos, but how do you organize your team and how do you get brand deals and how do you make better content that actually resonates with your audience. So a lot of things that I learned, a lot of people that I met, and there was quite a few air conditioning people there actually. Um, some of them have their own companies, and then some tradespeople they just have a dedicated channel for the trades. Like there was one guy, I think his name is Roger Wakefield, and
Mm.
he's like really big. He's a plumber, and he does a lot of trades related content. But I think he has like 500,000 or 600,000 followers on YouTube,
Mm.
and he's been doing it and switching over to just doing content creation.
Mm.
And then I met a guy from I think it was from Nashville, and
Mm-hmm.
he has a family-owned business. Like his dad started an HVAC company, and I just randomly met him on the elevator,
Mm-hmm.
and we started talking. And I asked him, "So what do you do?" And he's like, "Oh, I like heating and air." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." So, but yeah, it was very interesting because he said that he has like 5 employees,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he said 5 technicians and like 1 or 2 like backlines people doing paperwork stuff,
Mm-hmm.
doing billing and so on, and HR. And he said he does over 1 million in revenue a year, and he has pretty good profit margins. So it's kind of interesting for me
Wow.
just to see because I'm planning to have my own HVAC company in the future. Obviously, now I'm still building up everything, but it's interesting to see how much I mean, financially, how much you can make with 5 technicians, but then also like how I think it just points out how needed it is
Yeah.
because it's for me it's like if you have like 5 people it's like very small. It's like it's like you hang out with your friends it's like usually more than 5 people already, so
Yeah.
and then have being able to make that much in revenue, it's kind of crazy to me.
That's pretty good.
But yeah, so I learned more about content creation and then also get feedback, and there was like meetups and stuff, and then some people reviewed my content and they're like, okay, your subtitles are a little bit hard to read. So then I increased the size of the subtitles,
Mm-hmm.
and also the way they're done, which I mean, I like it more, but
Mm-hmm.
these are like things that I don't think I would have just like found out on my own, you know. So it's always good to connect up with people that have been doing it for longer and just get feedback and just improve the quality of the content. And then, I mean, really the purpose in the end is to help like all the technicians that are part of the community and just make it easier for people to get into the trades. So yeah, so that's what we did last week. And then this week we're replacing a coil. Like today we're doing a coil replacement on a rooftop.
Oh,
So that's, yeah, we have a crane that's coming in the next half an hour. So that will be
my
fun.
God. Okay.
Yeah,
That's a
well, it'll be
cool.
good. So anyway, so a little bit
You
update.
should make a video about that at some point. Make sure of the crane or at
Yeah,
least a
maybe
picture or
I have to
something.
find out how my coworkers think about me filming a whole bunch of stuff. So they're like, "What are you doing? Get to work!" Like none of this stupid things. So we'll see. We'll see how it works out. But I'm
Okay.
planning to take at least some shots. Yeah.
All right. All right. So then, what I was gonna ask is about different AC units. Which ones do you think is best? Do you think that the old ones are better? Do you think the new ones are better? Which one has been the hardest one to work on? Let's say.
I think it's a very, I mean, the question is interesting, but I think it varies really where you work and what equipment you work on.
Mm-hmm.
And me answering the question, I don't know if it will really provide that much value. Um, I always think older equipment is better,
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways because it just runs usually. Because I don't know exactly. From my experience, older equipment was made to last, and newer equipment has so many rules and regulations and kind of um like energy efficiency ratings, and has so much stuff surrounding it, and they're obviously trying to bring down the production cost and increase the revenue. And then like on newer things, everything becomes obsolete within I think 2 or 3 years. Like I was working on a reach-in refrigerator the other day, and it was 3 years old, and I was trying to find a controller, and the controller is already obsolete, which means that the manufacturer doesn't produce it anymore. And I'm like, that's like 3 years. Like how, like, like
Yeah.
in the past, it used to be, I think it was 10 to 15 years that you would get part support from the supplier, and they would have to stock replacement parts for that long, if I remember correctly. But yeah, on all the equipment, like all the coils, the tubes, like all the copper was thicker, and they actually used metal instead of plastics. Like nowadays, it's a lot of plastic. And then also the copper is replaced with aluminum on the coils, so that corrodes away easier, so you get more leaks, and then you replace it. But then also replacement parts are so expensive these days that sometimes it's just more cost efficient to just replace the whole unit. Like
Oh.
if you have a condenser unit on the roof
Mm-hmm.
and the coil has a leak, it's
Mm-hmm.
probably just cheaper to buy a new unit, even if it's like 2 years old. I mean, it
Oh.
depends really on the warranty that you have, but on residential, I think you have 1 year warranty, and in commercial, you get 1, 3, or 5 years. I think it's 5 years on compressors. I'm not 100% sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, most of the units that I work on, they're older than that anyways. Sometimes I get like a 2 or 3 year old system. Um, so yeah, and just personal preference, what I like to work on is rooftop units,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically also called package units,
Mm-hmm.
because you have everything in one spot. So you just go on the roof, you set up, you do your thing, you're not in the way of the customer, you don't have to climb into ceilings or attics, or try and like go around and find the air handler. Because everything is together. You have the blower, you have the condenser, you have the evaporator, everything in one spot. You have all the controls there. So it's very easy to troubleshoot,
Mm-hmm.
and you're out of the way of the customer. That's also like a big point for me. And then the downside is obviously you're always on the roof, so you're always in the weather and in the sun or in the rain or in the snow. It's always there. Um, but yesterday I had a call, which I don't like those system. It's called a split system. I
Mm-hmm.
personally don't like them that much, but you have a air handler, which is inside the space and it just moves the air.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the evaporator, which removes the heat from inside the space.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the condenser unit, which is outside, which basically takes all of that heat that you picked up from the inside and moves it to the outside. Um, but then you have two separate units that you have to work on. So I went outside on the condenser first, and I noticed that there was no control voltage on the condenser. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, it must be from inside, because usually the control voltage gets supplied by the air handler.
Mm-hmm.
So I crawled into the attic, was like only beams. You couldn't even step anywhere, so you had to go on the beams and then climb in between like a little monkey. So, and it was like very hot in there, and dark because I didn't have any lights. So it's like the usual attics. And then there was a problem with the smoke detector. So yeah, it's very interesting. I don't like split systems that much and attics and stuff, which is why I prefer to work on commercial instead of residential. But
Mhm.
that's why there's such a variety. Like you can literally work on anything that you really like. Like I was on a podcast, I think 2 weeks
Mhm.
ago with Adrian Garcia from um what is it? HVAC and R well here's an Instagram channel. I forgot. Oh, reliable HVAC, I think it's.
Hmm.
Um yeah, and he was saying that he likes working on kitchen equipment. And I
Oh,
was like, I really don't like working on kitchen equipment because it's all greasy and stuff. Um but he likes it. So that's why people have personal preferences, and that's why I like HVAC so much because you can literally work on a lot of stuff. Like one of my buddies, he worked with this company and then he moved on to another company because he likes working on bigger equipment. And then he was saying he was working on a 75-ton um what was it? Like a package unit, 75-ton package unit. And
mhm.
then just spend one day just trying to find a leak on the unit because it had a leak. So, and there was two technicians there. And I mean, he likes working on big equipment, so he can do that too.
Wow.
And some people really prefer residential, which I can understand too, because you're more directly in touch with the customer.
Mhm.
Um, and it's usually just one or two split systems in the house. So once you get to know the customer and you're doing good work, usually you have a long-term relationship. So it's more personal, and there's definitely advantages to that too. But it's really depends on what you prefer, I think. So yeah, I like it. I like it here. Like at the company that I work, we do about 70% air conditioning work and then 30% refrigeration work. And it's usually not kitchen equipment. It's just like walk-in or like stores for like grocery stores and stuff. So anyways, that's my take on it. But everybody has their own take.
Right.
So
And
I
then
don't know how much it helps, but
so basically, I have another question because obviously each system is different depending on what type of like let's say if there's residential, if there is like commercial, like if somebody has a if somebody has like a kitchen or if somebody is like in a big building. So there is different systems for each part because you're not gonna put a residential one in a big building one, which is different types of
I
equipment.
mean, yeah, they get used to. It's just larger.
Mm.
Like the split system that is used on residential, they also use it on commercial, but they just have more units.
Mm.
Like sometimes you have residential, I mean, sorry, you have commercial buildings, but then they use residential unit. So it's really just a setup in the space that you're in. Like it really depends on the building engineer who designs and the architects that design the blueprint and then whatever equipment gets installed. So that's what you're working on.
Okay. Okay, well that
But
makes sense. Mhm.
also like because you asked which units do I think is the most complicated,
Mhm.
and I have to say, recently I've had more of headaches with specifically train units. It's one of the manufacturers of air conditioning equipment, and they do a lot of controls. And I think they're trying to push forward on all the like Bluetooth and smart apps and being connected and internet and stuff. And I think the controls are more finicky, and I don't know why, but like sometimes when you're trying to follow the control circuits and just trying to find out what controls what, you literally have to jump through 3 or 4 different control mechanisms just to go to um like one sensor or something. And I don't really know why they would design it so complicated. It might have some reason that I don't understand. But literally I was trying to find out on one of the train units that I was working on why the high pressure switch kept tripping the unit. And it was not a problem with the switch because the switch I mean, the pressure was good, so I knew that it was not the switch itself. And then you're trying to trace the control, and it jumps from like one to the next, and then you have like literally three things that you have to go through. Like it goes from one control board to another control board, and then it goes to another relay, and then you're like, so why do you have to do that? Like just make it straight, you know? But then I just went into the app and I reset the unit and it was working. So I'm like, is it just a fluke? Did it just happen once? Is it going to happen again? And then you're trying to find the problem and test it and turn it on and turn it off and trying to recreate the problem to make sure that you actually fixed what was the issue, because all you did was a reset. But then, I mean, you can't also stay there forever. So you try it a few times, and if it doesn't come up again, then you're like, okay, I guess it's good for now, and you move on. But that's I personally recently don't like train that much just for the more finicky controls. But that's just me. So some people might love that. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was my question. I don't know. I'm gonna put maybe a next week. I'm gonna put an announcement to see if there's anybody who's interested in specific questions, and maybe we can talk about that. But that was the question that I had today. And then
Yeah, I tried that last week and I didn't get any questions because I was trying to make a separate just call where I just answer questions. So I made a post in the community, but there was no questions. So, I mean, I would do one now, and then maybe we can just pin it to the top of the community and see if somebody responds or not.
Mhm.
But yeah, otherwise, if there's not like a lot of questions, maybe we can go through the community and see if there's questions that people ask. Like we can do a discussion about truck versus van, or like filters or not filters,
Mhm.
and how much to charge. But if it's just me, then I have only one perspective. So if you want to have a discussion, you need to have two perspectives. And obviously you don't work in the trades yet. So
Yeah.
that's different. Like you have a different perspective, but it's different when you're actually working in it, and then you can go back and forth and like exchange ideas. So
Right.
but yeah,
Okay.
if you want to make a post in the community, maybe just do it now and then see if somebody has a specific question. And maybe if you want, I don't know if you feel like that, but maybe you can also directly message people and ask them if they have specific questions that they would like to get answered. Because then also the replays are available at level 2, so they need to make at least one comment or one post and need to get 5 likes, because that makes you to level 2, and then you can watch all the replays. So if they want their questions answered, then they also need to be active in the community somewhat, at least. So
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of like it's a caveat to that.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Well, that ends our call for today. And then I'll see you next Wednesday.